Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Amanda Show. If you're new here, my name is Amanda and you're in for a treat today. So, quite a number of things have been going on in the world this past week that I want us to dive into. Firstly, did Russia just betray Africa? Well, a lot of people seem to think so, and myself included, because at the United Nations Security Council, Russia vetoed a motion put in place by Great Britain that sought to put an end to the conflict in Sudan. We'll dive into that topic. From Russia's veto in the United Nations Security Council, we move over to a trend that is developing in Africa. And it's a trend that we're all excited to see. You know me, I am a no-no when it comes to foreign military bases in Africa. So this week, Chad kicked out the French military, and the president of Senegal seemed to indicate his interest. Not really seemed to, actually indicated clearly his interest to kick out the French military from Senegal. But while this is going on and Africa is kicking off the shackles of the French military on the continent, Nigeria seems to be going in a different route. So the president of Nigeria visited France and he was feeling like the big dog just because he visited France. We'll discuss that. Then we come to something very, I think is very funny, but let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Donald Trump just threatened BRICS. Yes, he did. He threatened BRICS, and I'm bringing up BRICS because African nations are members of the BRICS alliance. Okay, it's not really an alliance, the BRICS grouping, and then we also have African nations that are partners of BRICS. So initially, I wanted to talk about President Biden visiting Africa. He was in Angola and some other African countries, and he made a promise of $1 billion for humanitarian aid. But then I'm like, oh, Biden is leaving office in a few weeks, so why don't we talk about the one who is coming in and his threat to BRICS? Before we jump into the topics, there are two things I want to mention. Firstly, last week, one of you left a comment on one of my videos asking if I have a Buy Me a Coffee account because the person said he or she is interested in supporting this channel. I'm glad to inform you that I have just set up the Buy Me a Coffee account. So you can use the link in the description, or the link is also the link I'm putting on the screen. You can use this link to buy me a coffee to support the work that I'm doing here as we're coming together and rallying ourselves together to transform the story of Africa. Secondly, I've hinted several times on this show that in come 2025, there's something that I want us to do together when it comes to media in Africa. So I thought to give you a heads up about it and how it's going to work. So what I'm planning to do is in the first quarter of the year, between January to March, I want us to do this. I'm going to create a website, even if it's just a one-page website, where anybody who is interested in doing this for Africa, because the reason is Africa is always ignored in the global scale, and African issues are not analyzed and discussed on a global scale because Africa doesn't have a prominent African media. Well, now that it all looks not just in Africa but around the world that the legacy media is no more, nobody has trust in the legacy media, and citizen journalism is taking center stage. I thought that now is the best time for we Africans to lend our voice to talk about the issues of Africa. So that one-page website that I'm going to create is where anyone who is interested in joining me in this Africa media movement can sign up with your name, your country, and some other information we'll request for. And what we're going to do is, with that, we are going to use that one-page website to capture our information so we know everyone who is a part of this. And we'll have training. So if you want to do, say you want to use writing, you want to start a news site focused on Africa, you want to start a blog, we're going to have training on that. If you want to do a YouTube channel or you want to do a podcast, we're going to have a training on that. If you're interested in using social media, or maybe you're a graphics designer and you want to use infographics to tell the story of Africa, to push out new stories that affect Africa on a global scale, we are going to also have training for that. So the platform is where we're coming together to train ourselves and also discuss important things going on in Africa with respect to the rest of the world. So whether it's going to be local politics you're discussing, I also say whatever it is you're discussing, we should also have a geopolitical aspect of it because Africa is part of a global world This is where we are coming together as Africans to discuss, not just to discuss this and find the news, but to also amplify our voices. Because when we are working together to get this done, the whole world is going to hear us. So come 2025, between January to March, this is going to happen. And I'm so excited because this has been in my heart since the beginning of this year, but I just couldn't get it done. So now I'm planning to get this done next year. So get yourselves ready because in a few weeks, sometime in January, February, or March, the website is going to go live, and I would love to have you join me. Well, I have not finished fleshing out the whole concept of it. I know that together we are going to train ourselves for media in Africa, and we're going to work together to amplify Africa's voice on a global scale. I'm so excited about this, and I'll keep you informed as things develop. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of The Amanda Show. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends and your family so that we can reach more people across the continent and across the world. Let's begin. First things first, did Russia just betray Africa? Well, it looks like it. Now, let me tell you what happened. Since the war in Sudan kicked off in April of 2023, to the best of my knowledge, I may be wrong, but to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't really been discussed in the Security Council, United Nations Security Council. But please correct me if I'm wrong. Finally, recently, the United Kingdom pushed the issue in Sudan on the table in the United Nations Security Council, and I was happy about it because if something is going on, the United Nations Security Council is really these five nations and the people who come in as guests. I call them guests because they are not the permanent members, but this permanent group that is United States, Russia, United Kingdom, China, and France. These countries are literally the security guarantors of the world. So the UK finally pushed this and said, can we just talk about what's going on in Sudan? And I support the UK in this one because unless what's going on in Sudan is at the forefront of the world, is a major topic in the hearts of people in the world, it can just be going on and getting worse and worse and worse, and nobody's going to do anything about it. Well, the UK proposed this motion and Russia vetoed it. You would think that what is going on in Sudan should be, it should break anybody's heart, and no one should even, the last time we spoke about Sudan, I mentioned on this show that over 100 women, some said 130, some said 150, but we are sure that it's over 100 women committed suicide in Sudan to avoid being sexually assaulted by the RSF. That lets you know how bad things have gotten in that country. So to think that a nation is willing to veto that, is willing to veto a resolution that is calling for an end to hostilities in Sudan. Of all people, Russia, it was very disappointing for me because over the years, not just recently, but even during Africa's fight against colonialism, Russia seems to have been Africa's friend. Russia was there for South Africa fighting apartheid. Russia was there under the USSR. Russia was there for African nations fighting colonialism and asking for self-determination. Russia was there in a lot of issues that Africa has faced. But Russia has been on Africa's side. So when I saw this, I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? Why is Russia voting against this motion, calling for an end to hostilities in Sudan? And you would think, okay, fine. You say you don't like what the United, because one of the things I've not seen the motion that the United Kingdom proposed. Usually, when this kind of things go on in the United Nations, you can always go to United Nations website to read about it, to know where each country stood, blah blah blah. So I've not seen that. I've looked, but I have not seen the UK's proposition. But what Russia is saying is Russia's reason, according to the Russians, for vetoing that resolution by the or proposal, whatever, by the United Kingdom is that the proposal gave room for foreign interference into Sudan, meaning that foreign troops, foreign army would get involved in Sudan. And if we are going to go by what foreigners can do in Africa, we have a long history of foreigners getting involved in Africa and things haven't turned out well. For example, not too long ago, we saw what happened in Libya when outsiders came in and caused chaos in the country. As today, Libya, that was the most prosperous nation in Africa, has turned out to be a rump state. where there is no central government and they are selling Africans. Africans that look like Barack Obama, black Africans are being sold in open slavery markets in Sudan. So we know how things can go. Sorry, in Libya. So we know how things can go when foreigners get involved in the domestic affairs of countries, particularly in Africa. So Russia's argument is that they vetoed that motion sent by the United Kingdom because they didn't want to give room for foreigners to get involved. Because if foreigners get involved, everyone, particularly in this game of geopolitics, everyone is going to be fighting for supremacy or I want to maintain my position on this continent or on this country, and it can lead to chaos, further worsening of the situation in Sudan. That's what the Russians are saying. Okay, but my argument is, okay, Russia, let's take that whatever the United Kingdom put on the table wasn't good enough, and it could lead to the situation that is bad to get even worse. Let's take that. So that has been having this issue for it's in the second year now. It started in April of 2023. As we speak, we're in December of 2024 and the fire is still burning. So why has Russia not proposed a motion? If the one the UK did after over a year, after almost 2 years, if the one the UK did is not good enough, why has Russia not set anything on the table? Why has Russia not done it? Because if you say you have an issue with the ones the United Kingdom put on the table, then you put a better one. Put a better one. Do you understand where I'm coming from? You put a better one because this is the second year, and or apart from this one the UK put on the table, I don't know if there's been anything. Sudan is burning and the whole world is moving on. Sudan is burning, and the people who are funding the burners of Sudan, that is the UAE, everything in the UAE is going on smoothly. Yet Sudan is on fire. So that's my question to Russia. Why have you not, or is there any rule that Russia cannot put any proposal on the table, or Russia cannot say anything about Sudan on the United Nations Security Council? I've said this before and I'll say this again. In as much as we've had more positive things to say about Russia and we've had more positive things to say about China compared to some other people, that should not be the reason why we completely, till I say, let our guard down with anybody. Do you get? It should not be the reason why we completely let our guard down with anybody because you do not know how anybody will turn. You don't know when it comes to the game of geopolitics. Everyone is focusing on their national interests and their own interests. So Africa should focus on Africa's interests. Don't say because Russia has been our friend for a long time, which is not a bad thing. But don't say because Russia has been our friend for a very long time, therefore we are going to just bow down to the Russians, or because China has showed up for Africa a very long time and China's development aid and infrastructure building and everything China is doing is better than anything we've ever gotten from the West. Yes, there's argument to support what you're saying, but that should not be the reason why you completely sell out yourself to China. In this game of geopolitics, it is to focus on our interest. If we are going to build an African pole, if we are going to build an African pole in this multipolar world, that pole is not going to be subservient to any country or any region. That pole is going to work for Africa's interest in a multipolar world. So now that how I want us to begin to think in Africa is to think from a standpoint of self-interest. Do you get me? We should be from a standpoint of self-interest. What is Africa's interest? If Africa's interest is not Russia's interest, we're not going to now say, okay, ignore, let's focus on what to make the Russians happy. No. If Africa's interest is not China's interest, that doesn't mean we are going to say, okay, let's put a personal interest and focus on the Chinese. No, because the Chinese is working a lot in infrastructure development in Africa. No, if Africa's interest is not America's interest, America should get out. We don't care. We're going to function and work for Africa's interest. And the same thing with the Europeans. And I'm coming into Europe in the next segment. So I want us to remove, because I tend to see in Africa, particularly among African youths, I tend to see we are more, it seems like we're replacing one colonizer with another colonizer. I'm not saying Russia is a colonizer, I'm not saying China is a colonizer, but there's this thing because after the West has so has been so mean to us because the West has spent decades, even centuries, being so mean to Africa. We're now drawn to the Russians and the Chinese. I get it. But what I'm saying is, as we are drawn to the Russians and the Chinese, let us not, for any reason whatsoever, let us not think that because Russia and China are our friends, we are now going to let our guard down and do things that may not be in the interest of Africa just because we want to make them happy. Like I said before, if Russia had a problem with the motion brought by the United Kingdom on the Security Council over Sudan, they said it was because what the United Kingdom put on the table was going to give room for outsiders to get involved, which could make the situation in Sudan worse. I get it. Russia, why has Russia not put a better proposal or a better thing on the table? Except I don't understand the way the Security Council works. Except I don't understand it. Russia should put something on the table and say, okay, this is better. UK own bad. All right, Russia own good. Put it on the table. I've not seen anything. China should put something on the table. I've not seen anything. United States should put something on the table. I've not seen anything. France, okay, put something on the table. I've not seen anything. I've not. So this is, this is one of the reasons why I've been saying that we need an army, a strong army of media in Africa. That's why I mentioned that next year, in the first quarter of next year, unfailingly, by God's grace, we were going to do this thing. All of us will come together. Those that can write will say, I can write. I'll sign up. I'm going to run a blog. I'm going to use social media. I'm going to do my writing. Those of us who are graphic designers, I will use infographics. Those of us who can speak very well, who are good communicators, I will use podcast. I will use YouTube. I will use Twitter. And we're going to use everything at our disposal to send out the African message to the rest of the world. Because if we leave it for these our legacy media institutions in Africa, they've done a very bad job. Until the reason why several times in the United Nations Security Council we saw all these things about Ukraine. Yes, it's because the United States is fighting for its hegemony on Ukraine. It's a proxy war between NATO and Russia. Okay, so we can make that argument. But it's also because the media kept pushing the talk of Ukraine. The reason why we've seen all these things about Palestine in the United Nations Security Council and also in the United Nations is because the media keeps talking about Palestine. It's not because, oh, Israel and and the United States and some other players would rather not have Palestine in the news. Because as long as it's not in the news, whatever is happening can keep happening. But because it's in the news, that's why Israel went to shut down Al Jazeera office and you see they're saying don't video this here and there. Why do you think they're going against media houses like that in talking about Palestine? Why do you think so? It's because the more people talk about it, the more the world is aware. And when the world is aware, it puts pressure. There is pressure to put a stop to it because nobody would see what is going on in Palestine and look away. And rightly so. Because what's going on is terrible. It's the same way if more people are seeing what is going on in Sudan, nobody will look away. So we are not going to have just one this is the second year. In 2 years now of the war in Sudan, to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time something like this emotion is put in the Security Council speaking up for Sudan. And it was put there by the United Kingdom. This is the first time. Why? Because, as they say, out of sight, out of mind. No, but who? Go to your biggest publications now. Open New York Times. Open the Washington Post. Look at CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Look at all these places. You will count how many stories of Sudan you will find there, but you will not be able to count Palestine. You will not be able to count Ukraine. So if you actually want to put a stop to all this chaos going on in the continent, one of the best places and the surest places we can handle it is from media. We need to keep talking. The louder our voices, nobody can ignore Sudan. The louder our voices, nobody can ignore Africa. And we will not have a situation where it's only one time in in 2 years of war, just one time is showing up in the Security Council. So, like I said before, I'm going to set this up next year, and I would like you to join me. Don't say, "Oh, I'd rather not stay." No, your voice is important. The more we have, the more there are of us talking about this thing, the more we can fix the situation in Africa. I told you some time ago I watched a documentary. It's a local documentary. It was made created by a Nigerian TV station, and I watched the documentary about a Chinese mining company that is mining gold in one of these western states in Nigeria, and they had so decimated the environment. Oh my God! That when floods came, the flood then it was as good as drowning the entire village because of what they had done, because they had taken out the gold in that state. But the rest of the world don't know this. Why? Because nobody's talking about it. So if you want, how did they said sunlight is the best disinfectant. If you want to put a stop to certain things that are going on in Africa, the surest way we can do this thing is by setting up media. Oh my God. Media movement. This is what I'm going to call what we are doing. It's an African media movement, an African media movement committed to the cause of Africa. Not waiting for CNN or BBC or RT or CGT and Al Jazeera. I need anybody to do our work for us. So that's what has happened with the situation in Sudan. Russia just vetoed a motion put by the United Kingdom calling for hostilities in Sudan. They have the reason why they said they did it. Well, whatever. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. And I mentioned earlier, just in case you missed that, I mentioned earlier that you can now support the work that I'm doing on this channel, doing for Africa. You can support that by buying me a coffee. Find the buy me a coffee link in the description and also on the screen. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with everybody you know so that we can change the story of Africa. The most important thing for me, particularly now that the world is changing like this in this multipolar world, the most important thing for me is that we create a strong Africa pole in the multipolar world. This Africa pole is going to be economically sound, security sound, security wise sound, politically sound, that our African children and Africans can live in peace, can live in prosperity, and can have the best life, the life that many of us go through the Sahara Desert and many people use boats dying in the sea. That life they're looking for in Europe, we can get it on this continent. So please share this video, subscribe to this channel, and like this video, and also use the buy me a coffee link in the description and on the screen. Yo, oh my God. Oh my God. Things are moving, moving, moving. I'm so excited. So, you may have heard, Chad just kicked out the French military. Okay. Yes, Chad has kicked out the French military. They've asked them to take out their military from the country. And the president of Senegal, I'm so happy because I gave President Faye benefits of doubt for a long time. Even when a lot of Africans have started saying, oh, he's a snake, he's a this, he's a that, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, let's give him a little bit of time. He just came in. Let's give him a year to year and 6 months and see his policies. And I'm so excited that I didn't really mount. It's good to have patience with people. So the president of Senegal mentioned that they can't keep having the French military in his country, signaling that it's time for the French to get out of Senegal. And I'm happy about that. And I'm happy not just because we are kicking out the French military. I'm happy because foreign military bases in Africa have done more harm than good. They are not good for the continent. So I am happy, and I'm going to be extremely happy to kick out any military, not just the French military, but any foreign military at all. It doesn't matter if it's the Americans, the French, the Russians, anybody. We don't want them operating. President Faye said that, and this is a strong indicator of all the changes taking place in Africa. I know sometimes, yeah, we look at Africa and we say, like, oh, everything is bad, but it's just default setting for a lot of us. But if you take a closer look, there are a lot of changes going on. A few years ago, you would not have thought that we would have seen a situation that we saw in Niger, where the leaders are saying, enough, enough. Niger and the minerals, the resources in Niger would take care of the Nigerians. Look, we are seeing the same thing in Burkina Faso. We are seeing it in Mali. Now Chad. But there's something I want to say about Chad though. Well, now Chad and Senegal, there's a movement. There's a movement taking place in Africa where Africa and our leaders, some of our leaders, not all, some of our leaders are breaking away from business as usual to carve out a place for themselves and their country in this and their countries in this new world that is taking shape. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy. Well, as that is going on, a president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, oh, I'm trying not to. There's something in my mind I want to say, but I don't want to say it. Anyway, the president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, decided that, well, as everybody's kicking out the French, he's going to open his arms and say, France, come on, baby. He went to France, and for whatever reason, well, they said they want to discuss economic things and blah, blah, blah. He went to France. He went to France and decided to cozy up to Macron. He wants to cozy up to Macron, that is fine, but he should not put Macron can be his friend because even before he became president of France, sorry, became president of Nigeria, he's always visited France. He's always in France for vacation. So I think personally, he just has a liking for France and the French people, which is okay. I don't have an issue. That's why I said if he wants to cozy up to France, he can be cozying up to France. But let him not drag our country, Nigeria, in that cozying up because there's a reason all these other nations are kicking out the French. Interestingly, Tinubu is the first Nigerian president in over 20 years to go to France because France is not something that comes into the conversation for Nigeria and Nigerian leaders. Normally, ever since I've been following geopolitics for a while now, and even growing up watching, like France is not a thing. It's a country, but it's not. Its presence, its geopolitical presence, is not a thing with Nigeria. Usually, with Nigeria, the geopolitical presence is um the United States. United States is present everywhere. It's the United States, the United Kingdom, and I think United Kingdom because they were the people who were the colonial forces in Nigeria. So France is never a thing. So it came out, even a lot of a lot of political commentators were like, France of all places, what are you doing in France? That's how shocking this visitation to France is. And what I found very interesting with that his visit to France is the way he was, it seemed the vibe I was getting, this is just me, but the vibe I was getting as Tinubu was working with Macron, it seemed to me that he was feeling like he's something just because he's with Macron. You know, yes, I'm in this circle now, I've arrived. Well, I was getting that kind of vibe from him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me getting some things that are not existing there. But that's the vibe I was getting. And then as I was looking at him, feeling special in my mind, though, this is what I'm not saying he said it, this is just the vibe I was getting. But as I was looking at Tinubu feeling special because it's with Macron, I'm like, Macron, of all people, is Macron that you're feeling special because it's just like saying you're feeling special because you're with Trudeau. Yes, France is an important country, but Macron himself is not is not an important. Anyway, having said that, I want to now look at back to I want to come back to Chad and Senegal. Two things I want to say. Number one, while it's important that Chad and Senegal are gradually getting rid of the French military bases. For me, it's not just supposed to be just the French. I mean, every military base you get out. While that is important, another important thing I want us to look at is economy. These countries, Senegal and Senegal and Chad, and as well as Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, they cannot keep operating when they are not printing their currency. They may say they want to get rid of these military bases, which is a step in the right direction. But until you get full control of your monetary policy, until you get full control of your economy, you are not an independent state. You are not. So as we're clamoring and we're excited that yes, we've gotten rid of the French military, let us find a way to break these African nations away from using this French currency in their countries. As a sovereign nation, your currency cannot be printed by outsiders. It's not. This should be. I don't even know how this has continued to exist in the world for all these decades, and nothing, no, on an international level, nothing has been done about it. Because clearly these countries are not independent if their monetary policy is not under their control. So that's why I said we should find a way. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that this is why we need an African currency, one currency used by Africans. I don't know the process of setting up a new currency, but I think it can instead there should be a currency printed in an African capital, maybe somewhere, maybe in Burkina Faso, maybe somewhere in Mali, some in one of these French-speaking African countries. There should be a currency printed there by Africans that all those ones can use to replace the CFA, the one printed by France. Instead, like I said, I don't know the whole process, but I think it's going to be easier to print one for these countries in Africa, particularly in West Africa, that use this currency. It's easier to create a currency for those ones to print than create one. I mean, in the immediate, something we can do in the next few years. That is faster to be able to get done than doing one for the whole of Africa. That's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing I want to mention is something that happened in Chad before they said they are transitioning into democracy and elections and blah blah blah. In Chad, that is why this leadership in Chad, I'm still looking at it with my side eye because before those elections, I think, well, yeah, before those elections or before the transition kicked off to bring back the whole elections, I wanted to bring back the whole elections and democracy. You know how I feel about democracy and discussed it in my in my previous video. But before that thing that happened, there was something that happened in Chad where the person who looked like he was going to win the elections is not the military head, which is this person, the one currently in power. It wasn't him. It was I think that it was his cousin that seemed to have that upper hand. There's something now. This happened early this year. Then something happened. All of a sudden, they said, "Oh, the opposition, which is the guy was the opposition for party. Oh, the opposition is trying to create a coup, and then blah blah blah." There was now so the military moved into the opposition office and opened fire, and killed him. Meanwhile, I believe much later there was a report, if I'm not mistaken, I need to verify this, but there was a report that the killing of that opposition figure was not necessary. In fact, there was a report that it was a close range kill because when they said, or when they asked for how he died, they said there was a shootout and blah, just gave a funny excuse that I don't believe. Personally, I don't believe it. But audio samples, I need to verify this. I think I read it some months ago. Audio recording from that event said that he was killed close range. So I think that whole thing about coup, they were trying to plan overthrow the government, blah blah blah. I think it was staged just so they could take out the opposition party, which is why anybody who would do that does not think or care about the welfare of the people of Chad. Anybody who would do that is just trying to hold on to power. And that is why this current leadership in Chad, it's even if I talk about it and I've said they are moving in the right direction by kicking out the French military, that doesn't mean I'm looking at them like, oh, people who really care about the well being of Chad. They would have to do things. Like when I mean do things, they would have to do a lot of things to prove to me that they care about the well-being of the people of Chad. Because if you create such a stunt just to kill and assassinate your political rival, that doesn't speak well of you. That doesn't speak well of you at all. I was so disappointed in that. And even then, I think some months later, there was story. Although the government of Chad denied this in their defense, they denied this, but there was reports that the government of Chad was bringing the United States Green Beret back into the country. So they may be kicking out the French, but there are a lot of things that still need to go on within Chad that will now make me say, all right, this government is working for the well-being of the people. Let me know what you think about this whole kicking out the French military from Africa. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. And also, this thing about the Nigerian president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, visiting Macron in France. As they're kicking out France in other African countries, he's going to bend the knee to Macron. Let me know what you think about this development in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family and your friends as we reach more people across the continent and across the world. And also, don't forget to, if you want to support the work that I'm doing on this show, you can use the Buy Me a Coffee link on the screen or in the description below. Thank you for joining me. The final topic we'll be discussing today is what is going on in the United States. We are going to discuss Trump's threats to the BRICS nations. But before then, I just wanted to quickly touch on the fact that um, Joe Biden visited Angola and some other African countries. He's like he's trying to woo Africa again. Come, let me pull you out of the grip of the Chinese. So he's trying to woo Africa again. And I'm not impressed. First of all, why am I not impressed? Because Biden is out of office in how long? In a few weeks. By January 20th, Trump will be inaugurated. So whatever Biden is trying to do, anybody can just ignore it. If Africa was really important to Biden, Biden should have come in the beginning part of his administration. He shouldn't be coming at the tail end of his administration. Nobody really cares. And then he came in and he made a commitment of $1 billion in humanitarian aid for Africa. I need the Americans to realize that as someone who likes the American people and the American fashion, music, movies, or the American culture, I need the Americans to realize that even if things look the same in Africa for now, there's a shift. Change is happening while it's still brewing on the ground, it's still brewing gradually. That doesn't mean a monumental change isn't going on. I said that to say this behavior of just throwing, all right, Africa and aid, it's like aid has become synonymous with Africa. You think Africa, oh, help, you, they need help, they need food, they are hungry, they are poor. That's how the whole thing has evolved to be. And but I want the Americans to know that there's a generation of Africans, especially young Africans, that are coming on the scene. And they are coming with so much dissatisfaction. They want to change the system. These people who are coming on the scene are not impressed by aid. So this thing that Biden came and default setting, oh, just give them 1 billion, the continent, give them $1 billion in humanitarian aid. It's not going to cut it anymore. It's not going to. If you want to work with Africans and if you want to be in Africans, you have to be in Africa because you care about the Africans, not because, oh, well, there's a problem and they need our money. No, no, no. Because you're looking at Africans as equal partners. Do you get me? You're looking at Africa as equal partners. Africans are equal partners and not subjects that you can tell to do this and that. And when they do your bidding, you just throw humanitarian aid their way. It's not going to work anymore. It's not going to work. Because when like me now, how I felt when I saw that, I was like, oh, all right, these people just will not learn. This it's not going to cut it anymore. And that's why you hear a lot when you hear a lot of people within their political groupings and you hear their political analysts when they talk, when they mention Africa is even getting involved in Africa now is just, oh, let's do this in Africa to counter Russia and China in Africa. It's not, they're not doing it in Africa because they look at Africans as equal partners. No, they're just doing it because let's just counter the growing influence. That's how they always phrase it, the growing influence of Russia and China in Africa. I heard Condoleezza Rice say something. I know I mentioned in the last episode that I'm going to be quoting her a lot. I've been listening to her, and I think she's a very intelligent woman, even if I don't agree with her ideologically. So she said something that I agree with. She said they asked her a question about the Russia and China's influence in Africa and how America should be able to count things America should do to be able to counter it. And she said we cannot use this idea, this mindset to approach the Africans because it doesn't make sense. If we are getting involved in Africa, we should get involved in Africa because we want to get involved in the Africans, not because of Russia or China. And she's right. She's right. Even when I saw some media publications talk about Biden's visit to Africa, they still did it at the backdrop of, oh, Russia and China's great influence in Africa. So this is America's way to counter them, to counter them. Okay, let's look at that counter. Let's see how well the countering has worked. China is doing in this bricks, this new Silk Road, this construction that China is doing. I've forgotten the name now. I'm so surprised that I've forgotten. It's the BRI, but I need to remember the full name. But in that infrastructure work that China is doing, that they call the new Silk Road, how many African countries have benefited with the creation of ports, with the creation of railways, with the creation of um, airports across the continent? You want to counter that? If you want to counter that, it's not $1 billion humanitarian aid. Africans are not impressed by it. If you want to counter that, that's not how you go about it. That's not how you go about it. You're going to go about it. You not just, if you want to counter, you don't just march, because in this time frame of 10 years, yes, China have spent hundreds of billions of dollars in Africa. Hundred, because initially they were giving loan, right? Then they found out that some leaders of some African countries were not using these loans to do what they said they were going to use them to do. So instead, China said, "Fine, we'll engage in infrastructure development," and they will put the infrastructure development where people are, in areas that are heavily lived in, where there's a lot of population, so that the people can benefit and use those infrastructure projects to grow the economy. All the places where you see railway, that China built railway across Africa, it is in heavily populated areas that is adding back to the economy of those regions. So if you want to counter China, say, oh, America is really serious about countering China, you will not counter China with 24 billion dollars in whatever it is you're doing, and $1 billion in humanitarian aid. Africa is not impressed by that. You want to counter China? Good. Let me tell you how to do it. For every airport China builds, you counter that with two airports. For every railway, you should counter that with railway. Don't give money. We're not looking for money. Money is not our problem in Africa. Africa, if we will just get serious, if we will just get serious, all the money that these people are throwing at the African problem, we don't need it. Africa is even supposed to be giving loans to countries. Africa is supposed to be giving loans if we leverage our human resource, the people that we have on this continent, the young people. We should really leverage it well. Then leverage our natural resources, leverage everything God has given to us. These people, money is not supposed to be impressing Africa. Money doesn't impress us. Money is not supposed to be impressing Africans. But no, because of intentional and the support of terrible governments, the intentional sabotage of Africa. That's why they think they can throw 1 billion at us and we'll be dancing, oh, 1 billion in our lives. We've never thought to see this money. Please, I'm not impressed. Now let us go back to the main conversation I wanted us to have. And that is Donald Trump. The braggadocious Donald Trump. He's a very interesting figure. He's a very interesting figure. So Donald Trump just threatened BRICS. And I'm talking about BRICS because African nations, South Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt, are part of BRICS. And we also have countries like Algeria and Nigeria and a few other African countries that are members of um, partners of BRICS. No, they're not yet full members, but they're partners. So Donald Trump said that if BRICS dares, if they dare to set up a new currency, that they are going to get every BRICS nation, and I'm assuming even partner nations, are going to have 100% tariffs thrown at them if they want to sell to the wonderful American market. That BRICS should go and find another sucker. Okay. First, I want to tell Donald Trump that people did not just wake up and say they were not going to use the dollar. No, it was because America weaponized the dollar. America weaponized the dollar. That's the reason why. Nobody came in and said, oh, our goal for this year is to completely destroy the US dollar. It was the way America weaponized the dollar that other nations said, let us find a way to protect ourselves and protect our countries and find an alternative mode of payment outside of the US dollar. That is the number one. Number two, he's threatening BRICS creating a new currency. He's threatening BRICS creating a new currency that is going to rival the USD. And to the best of my knowledge, has not fully come out to say they are going to create a new currency. The talks that is going on within BRICS, because everybody accepts that creating a new currency is not child's play. So the talks that are currently what they are looking at immediately, maybe the BRICS currency more further down the line, but the immediate talks that are going on now is working with a pool of currencies of BRICS states for transactions. So if I want to buy from South Africa now, I don't need to use US. But why are we using US dollar? Why are we using the USD to transact within Africa? What kind of nonsense is that? What kind of thing is that? So anyway, if you want to do that, me and like Nigeria and South Africa now say they want to transact, they will just transact with the pool of currencies like the naira and the rand. So if Donald Trump is threatening a new currency, Mr. Trump, you're not in a new currency in the immediate, maybe in the future, yes, but in the immediate term, you're not in a new currency, maybe a digital one, probably. But all of this is happening because your country weaponized the dollar. With all these sanctions. What is this? With all these sanctions you are throwing all over the place, with all this say, like imagine because you're holding your money, your country's money in USD, and because it's in USD, it has to be held in some of these banks in Europe or the United States. If you are not the United States, they'll just seize your money. People they did it to Russia. They'll seize your money. Or they will seize your gold. They did the gold to Venezuela. If you upset them, they'll seize your money, seize your gold. So who will want to be because it's not a fair game, so who will want to keep playing that game? Who want to keep playing that game? The reason the United States is falling, the empire is collapsing, it's not because of something that outsiders are doing to the US. It's because of the policies of the United States. A handful of people who have this idea that United States is the boss of the world, therefore it has to keep asserting itself as the boss of the world. I told you Condoleezza Rice said it plainly that America is a world power and world powers don't mind their business. So if you keep playing games like this, you will just make the whole world sick and tired of you. And no matter how much you scream, Donald Trump, no matter how much you kick, no matter how much you fight, no matter how much you complain, you cannot stop it. The dollarization has happened. You can threaten 100% tariffs. People will just find a way to function outside of selling to you. Yes, America is a very important market. I think it's even the most important market in the world. But it's just for a time. The more these systems and structures are created outside of the United States, you find that you're living in a bubble. Keep throwing your tariffs. Oh my God, have a field day with it. Have a field day with it. Keep throwing your sanctions. Knock yourself out. Keep weaponizing your dollar. Exhaust yourself with it. You realize that you have only successfully pushed the world to create an economic structure outside of you. And by the time that structure fully takes shape, there is nothing else you would do within your power that can stop it. So if you keep throwing tariffs, people will just find a way to. After all, when they said Russia should not sell its oil to Europe, Russia found a market with India and China, and the Russian economy continued to grow. So you say you are going to throw tariffs at half the population of the world. I'm so sorry, I'm laughing. This whole thing is just ridiculous. You say you want to throw tariffs at half the population of the world because population of BRICS now, including not just the members but also the partners, is a lot. So you throw tariffs at half the population of the world. You just inspire them and trigger them to create strong structures outside of you. That's what it is. The only way I don't. First of all, I think this whole de-dollarization thing has happened though, and I don't think it can be reversed. But really, the only way that you can completely change the this whole thing about the dollarization and not just the dollarization but the multipolar world, you can change it from being right now it's looking as if it's the west best the rest. The only way you can change that is America should just learn to play fair. There's international law. America will pick and choose which international law to follow. Then when it finds that it's really acting funny with the way the international law is working, to now tell you rules based order. What is rules based order? They will not now say international law, they will say rules based order. It's the same way we saw when the ICC put arrest warrants for Putin, Vladimir Putin. Everybody was so happy. There were people like Lindsey Graham were like, yes, the ICC is it. This is a proof that you cannot be a bully and do things anyhow to please. There's international law, you respect it. Everyone was happy. The ICC, the best institution in the history of humanity. Then once the ICC put an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, oh, it became the worst thing to it became the worst thing to exist in the world. There's even the senators, the Senate, the House in the US, they threatened sanctions at the judges. They said they would sanction the judges of the ICC. I thought the ICC was a good thing. No, it's a good thing when it's going against our enemies like Putin, but when it's going against our friends like Netanyahu, it's a very, very, very terrible thing. So this is why the whole world is sick of it, and everyone is really working for a multipolar world, which is already here, by the way. Is this whole hypocrisy? Is this whole thing that is sickening the whole world? So if Trump wants everyone to, wants things to still be good for America, America should first of all stop weaponizing the dollar. America should second of all stop as pushing itself and bullying everybody. Like, just behave like a normal country that obeys international law. You cannot pick and choose which one you want. But I don't think the Americans will stop. It's not, even under Trump, it's not going to stop. So for the next 4 years, I said this to someone this morning before I started recording this show. In the next 4 years, take the biggest popcorn you can find, be eating it, and just look at the United States. We're about to see the funniest show. No, 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 no. We are about to see the funniest show that you could ever watch. There's nothing on Netflix, on Prime, on any streaming platform that you can watch that'll be more entertaining than the United States in the next 4 years. There's nothing at all, nothing. So let me know what you think about Biden coming to Africa and giving us $1 billion in humanitarian aid because, of course, Africans are hungry and they'll always need humanitarian aid. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. And also, Donald Trump threatening, Biden is the outgoing president and Trump is the incoming president. And Donald Trump threatening these BRICS countries, which also includes several African countries, with 100% tariffs if they dare to find a currency to trade outside of the US dollars. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family, your friends, and everybody so we can reach more people across the continent and across the world. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing on this show, please use my Buy Me a Coffee link in the description and you'll also see it on the screen. Thank you for joining me in this episode. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.